basement door open for a bit, so the cats and dogs might be.
Okay, sounds good. Do I need to wear a microphone or nah?
It's up to you. I don't think it's necessary, but it might be just slightly better audio.
Well, I'm live now, so
Okay.
cheers.
That's fine.
Love you.
Bye.
Hey everybody, it's a Saturday, it's live stream day, and today we're walking through assembling our quad moolah frame. We have inventory on the way, so those of you that have ordered, you're going to be getting your orders real soon now. And we've got our QA. So this is our internal QA for build and release. Some of you might not know, but I'm a professional engineer here in Saskatchewan. I am a mechanical with a minor in electrical and about 6 years of experience in robotics, a lot of healthcare, some in drones. I've been doing this for 2-3 years now. And so this QA is something that we're kind of testing today, because the idea is that we want to really rigorously QA test everything that goes through WingSmith. So if you're going to be receiving something from us, you're going to have not only the components having their check within their, Flywoo, DJI, they've got their own internal QA. Now WingSmith is going to be applying our QA, and you'll get one of these in your box. It'll probably have our letterhead on it with a logo and stuff like that, but here we're just testing out a few pages of quality assurance and testing, making sure everything works, and we'll be doing a build. So I'm going to be putting the thread locker on right now. I've already got part of the frame assembled, which is great, and you're going to see the desk is a bit of a mess because we've had a lot of different parts moving through. So this particular build is going to be using the Flywoo F22 instead of the Flywoo H743. That's because I had one on hand, and to be honest, it's fine. Like, I've never had a problem with it in the smaller drones. We'll probably be bringing it on at some point to give just another option to anything that uses that mini stack. And maybe if prices of electronics keep going up, we'll bring on the F22 for everything, like all the builds, just so that there's a relatively easy entry point. Right now the H743s are technically still available, but I'm sure you guys have seen like everything from memory to Xboxes goes up in price. So do things like Radio Master controllers and the Flywoo stacks and literally anything that's got memory in it, or those like kind of critical electronics. So we're going to be watching and just adapting as we go. And right now, we'd like to support the H743 going forward because it's more future-proof, especially with something like GPS, where it's doing lots of calculations. It just handles it way better. You're going to get a better long-term product out of the H743. But if you're just doing like a micro drone, and especially if you're not using something like a GPS, the processing power of the 722s is honestly fine. It's only when you start getting into those, kind of more advanced features, things like, satellite locking, return to home, and things like some pretty aggressive PID calculations, like D-Shot 600. It's going to work on any of them. It's only when you start combining D-Shot 600 with things like the GPS return to home, and then you're also trying to do telemetry, and you just keep stacking things on top of that processor, you can eventually kind of reach a hard limit. So the H743 doesn't struggle with any of that. That's why the Flywoo stacks we picked and the HD0 Halo stack are all H743. But time changes everything. So we're going to start here, and I'm just going to turn this camera around. Let's take a look. All right. Here we are on the desk, and let me just make sure that everything's decent here. You don't need to look at me. I'll just make this. All right, and here we're doing the build. Great, so we've got our standoffs on the back off. These are M2 standoffs, they're pretty basic, and all of the components for the WingSmith drones are designed to be specific to the frames. I mean, obviously, but here you can see we've got our ELRS, or our antenna mount. you'll notice that the HD0 is actually wider. So the reason that we have two different mounts for the different antennas is because these antennas that HD0 come with are quite a bit wider, and as we go you'll see that I'm taking an antenna out of this guy, and so this antenna is quite a bit more narrow. So we've actually custom designed them to be as tight as possible to the components so that they are secure. So we're gonna start here. These are just Quadmula basic components. So I'm gonna take everything apart so that we can basically do everything really quickly. And if you are doing this at home, you might want to just do it by hand. That's totally reasonable. Lots of people do. And these are just these are M. So just a metric 1.5. Pretty basic. I think they're 6 or 8 millimeters. And then I'm not actually going to take this cage out of the standoffs because I don't need to. I'm just going to leave it as it is. The reason I'm doing this is because there's actually a lip on the front to help protect your carbon. And as part of the QA process, I'm going to show you guys. I'm actually going to take all this stuff off because I've already checked it, but you know, just to show you on camera, part of the QA process, it starts at the most basic level, as you'd expect, with carbon. So we're basically going to check out the carbon and make sure that there's no delamination. Delamination is where the actual layers of the carbon fiber are peeling apart, because carbon fiber is like a weave. It is not just solid like a piece of wood. It's more like several weaved layers of fiber, kind of fabric, layered on top of each other. So if we take a look at the frame, you can see that there's a little bit of dust that's built up because I've used this frame in the past for a little bit of prototyping and demoing, but there's no delamination. Quadmula has an excellent QA/QC process of their own, so I'd be surprised if anything makes it out here for us, but looks like we've got just a little bit of like grass or something that was stuck on there. This is all smooth. Everything here is smooth. Looks like everything's in good order. There's no chips, there's no cracks, there's no breaks. You might be wondering what these two holes here are for, because our cage actually just does not use them at all. There's other kind of head mounts for the camera, and so if you want to save some weight, you can not use this and use a more standard or like a thinner. Here they are. I can actually show you. So here is a version of the cage, and Quadmula makes these. I'll try to get to focus, but there's a number 20 here. That's the angle that your camera's going to be in, and they've done a great job so that this flat face will always make contact instead of the lens of your camera. So in our preference, especially for anything that's going to be bando or used in kind of aggressive flying, you're going to be better served with this cage. But if you do want to save a little bit of weight, you know, use a bigger battery, and you're looking to save every gram possible, there is these prints that Quadmula makes, and they are kind of like a very minimal quad cage. And the idea is you fold these two, and then you put them over this standoff. The other one, I'm only going to do one just to demonstrate this. You just put it over the standoff, there's a little tab on the bottom, and it just clicks in. So on the top part of this frame, there is some, like a little cutout here, and this tab just sits on the inside, and then it's basically a friction fit because the camera's pushing out and the frame is pushing in, and so you get a good standoff. Now these are fine, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, this was actually the original design that the Quadmula frames came with, but this is definitely the preference because not only is it a little bit more protective, it also offers better vibration suppression because it's just more material. So because the standoffs are here and it's got to vibrate through more material, this is a soft TPU, so it actually absorbs quite a bit better. And we're using 95A. I'm actually currently testing 90A, which is even softer. And there's a particular color we use, which is kind of like a cyan, that is in that color. So we're doing some testing right now to see if it helps, because we'd like to eventually move away from the MP66 gyro DJI cameras. That's a big mouthful, but basically DJI is having an issue with some vibration suppression in their cameras right now. So we're gonna try eventually to create some soft mounting so that it's less of an issue. Anyway, here we are, and you can see all these screws are the same size. So we got the front and the back. We're going to apply some thread locker and just put them back in so that they stay great. You only want to use the blue thread locker. You don't want to use the red because that's permanent and this is removable. And then you only want to use a little bit, but the idea of thread locker is basically anything that's making metal to metal contact is going to be something that you want thread locker on. You do not want to use thread locker on things that come into contact with plastic, like propellers, for example, because it is, I don't think the word is corrosive, but the chemical reaction will actually eat your plastic. So you'll see lots of examples of people that have used it on prop screws and had them just come apart in the air. So remember, you don't need very much thread locker, just a tiny little dab. You can put it through. This actually already is a little bit more than I'd like, but I'm just gonna go ahead and push it through. And then I'm gonna do a second one, and we're going to screw our cage back in. And it's okay that our cage goes in because we are not worried about our camera at this moment, but the cage is actually flexible enough that it can accept the camera, even if it's already installed, because there's two receivers at the top, there's two receivers at the bottom, there's lots of flex, so even when you need to get it in there, it's not too bad. So why don't we start there? Okay. Great. Now we've got our cage. So we're going to leave these guys off to the side for a little while, and we're just going to go through each of our different screws and stacks and basically do the same thing. So just going to take these off. So let's switch this out. We got our tools here. We're going to go to a M2. Quad Mula frame does use two different sizes, M1.5 and M2. And this is the part you actually really want to make sure you got your thread locker on. Like for the camera cage it's fine, but there's a lot of kind of redundancy in the design of that. But these screws are really susceptible to vibration, as I've learned over 2 years of doing this. And so you really want thread locker on these guys, because just the vibration of the motors and things like, you know, if you do crash, that type of impact will shake these loose over time. And so you do want to come back and retighten them every once in a while, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you've done everything you can to protect your screws. And so thread locker is going to be super important. You can actually see that there's two different sizes of screws here. I think these are 6 and these are something like 12, maybe 10. And the short ones are going to be on the inside here for these like small attachment points, and then the big ones are on the outside. Reason for that is because of the stack. So I'm just going to take this all apart. Great, we got our smalls, we got our bigs. And we got our arms. So if you guys have ever thought, like, what does the quad mula C joint look like? It looks like this. There's only one screw that goes through the arm and attaches, and then you've got a spacer here basically for that second screw to go up and fix to the plate. And so the idea is that this is how your screws are held in place, and then your stack sits here and basically is going to be isolated from this by height. We put some little spacers in, like some gummies, and then if you need to change an arm at any point, like say you really mess up your quad and you're gonna have to like make a replacement, it's just a single screw that you remove and can pull out. That's a little bit different than on the Superfly frames, because on the Superfly frames you've got this kind of casing plate on the bottom, and you actually need to take that off if you want to get to your stack screws here. So this design is pretty rugged, and it's definitely like a solid design, but for convenience I actually really like the Quad Mula's locking system, where they have this kind of lock plate just underneath. It's also what's holding your stack screws, and then you can just slide it in, so it makes changes super duper easy. Otherwise, these are M2s. If you have M3s, they do come with a little rubber hosing that you can put over your screws, and we're actually going to do that because the HD0 stack is, here we go, I'll just grab this guy here. Okay. So the stacks that we work with are a little different. Each one has its own unique sizing, and so I'll show you here. The HD0 stack has quite a bit of, I don't want to say looseness, but it's got some play in here, and you don't want that because vibrations are going to affect your gyroscopes on your boards. And so this is an F22, but it's the same for the H743 from Flywoo. The gummies are spaced for M2, but here your gummies are spaced for M3. So you can use these little bits of hose over top of the screw to basically change the size. That actually again helps with vibration isolation so that your stack isn't vibrating. But because we're going to be migrating this guy back over here, we don't really need these little spacers. So just kind of a quick demo on what the board needs. Also, if you guys are looking to improve your soldering, I would highly recommend that you check out some solid flux. I've experimented quite a bit, but here in Canada we've got a company called MG Chemicals. There's lots of good brands out there, but this flux is amazing. It comes out kind of like in a little needle, like an injector, and it is magic. It makes all of your soldering come out so much better. And so this isn't the best example because I haven't put the wires on, but as we get to that part in the build, I'll show you. And it is like having a magic wand. It makes everything so much better. The only trick is that you do have to clean a little bit more intensely, because it does leave, it says no clean, but it does leave a residue because you usually don't burn off the whole thing. So you are going to want to have some cleaning agent on hand, and by that I mean isopropyl alcohol at 99%, just like everything else usually. And the idea is that you'll use that to clean off the residue. The residue is pretty gross looking. It looks kind of brown, and as you use your board, it'll create like kind of a dirty effect. It's also kind of sticky, so it'll attract debris and stuff. And it's just generally a good idea to always clean that up if you can. So we do that for all the builds. We'll be doing it on this one. And I don't know if this live stream is going to take us that far, but we're going to at least make it known. We're going to share our info as we go. So hopefully you guys are having a good weekend. It has been absolutely pouring here in Saskatoon for the last few weeks, and we're finally getting some nice weather here. So I'm doing a few rebuilds so that we can go test things like the GPS system that we're going to be sending out. We've done lots of GPS testing in the past, but we're trying out the a few different brands, and one of them is the magnometer and the non-magnometer versions from Flywoo. Betaflight doesn't use the magnometer. It basically just uses the kind of core features from the like non-compass version, but it is still nice to have the test on hand because you never know. Things change. They're adding new features all the time to Betaflight, and so maybe one day the magnometer is going to be worth it, but it's not at the moment. I would not recommend you get a magnometer unless you have a very specific use case, like you're doing something at really good big distances and you need that, but to be honest, you'd then be building a quad for long distance and it wouldn't be the same as a freestyle quad. You'd want to add totally different ELRS antennas. You'd want to be building it likely so that you have redundancy, so you're going to have like just bigger systems, you're going to have more systems, and in that case, sure, in that case you're probably already looking at things like Ardu Pilot, and maybe Betaflight isn't the best for you. You might be looking at some other options, but Betaflight is always improving, and for a number of reasons it's popular around the world for all kinds of different things, and we're seeing more and more a convergence towards I'd honestly say Betaflight. It just seems like it's getting more popular. Okay, so you can see I'm being careful not to get the blue thread locker above the nut here because there is plastic and stuff, so I'm just applying it with my finger basically, and that's not the most hygienic, but I did wash my hands before we did this. I'll be washing my hands afterward, and you just want to make sure you're doing a good job. This thread locker does harden over time, and it basically just acts like a kind of what's on the tin. It thread locks. Kind of acts like a soft glue. And you'll see it on things like the DJI camera screws because they use it. I wish I had an example beside me, but right now it's all in a build, so I don't have something I can show you right this second, but trust me that this is a common thing that if you take apart components in FPV, you'll see it on lots of different screws. Okay, so you have a little extra there, just clean it off. Cool. Last one as we do our rebuild. So this stuff is cheap. If you guys need to buy thread locker, you can, go out and pick it up from basically anywhere. It's Amazon. I'm sure it's in hardware stores. That's I'm sure where we picked it up. You can order it from drone shops, and we don't carry it at the moment, but we will in the future. So you can even get it from us coming up. And there's nothing special about it. It's literally just a tool. And now we've completed our build there, so we're going to start putting our arms back on. And okay. So you can always tell where the screws are supposed to sit by seeing whether they're countersunk on the plate. And so Quadmula has very kindly lined up our holes. Look at that. Look at us. So we can actually put our screws in the middle here, and it's not going to affect our plate, our board, and it actually also holds it in place because you've got these spots in the center to get your mounting screws out. Now the only downside about the Quadmula frame is that they've done a really nice job building it for 20 by 20, but as you can see it gets pretty narrow in the center here, and they've optimized the frame quite a bit so it doesn't support larger stacks, and it is a pretty tight build. So when you put the HD0 on there, it sticks out quite a bit. You can do it, but you're gonna have to do some tricky positioning to make everything work. So let's do that. We're gonna take our short screws, and this time we're putting the thread locker on the end. Very good. Take this. Very good. Alright, now we need to apply. So I forgot to change my tip. And as just a reminder, all the WingSmith kits come with a toolkit. We sell it separately too. It's the Flywoo toolkit, and it has all of the tools necessary to do this. It doesn't come with an electronic screwdriver because we're doing this quite a bit. We're building a lot of drones, so we are saving our wrists a little bit. I would heavily encourage, if you're going to be taking your things apart and putting them back together pretty consistently, that you also look into an electronic screwdriver. But if you're doing this by hand, it's fine. You got 1 quad, 2 quads, you're going to be fine. You're not going to be doing this that often. Now, I just wanted to try this as a live stream too, because we haven't done a lot of, building up close, and I've always really loved watching this myself, like watching other people put quads together. And so we figured, why not? Like, we're gonna have WingSmith Academy. We're going to be doing lots of different education through things like getting started and linking to resources, that we might as well show you what a build looks like, because we're gonna do this for all of them, and then you can get a good idea of what you're getting into. So there we go. We got our basic setup. If you're wondering, like, oh my god, you forgot the arms, I probably will need to loosen it slightly, but you can just slide these in. Let's see. Shucks darn, eh? I'll need to loosen these a bit just to get these arms in. So we'll come back and retighten. The Fed locker does take a few minutes to sit, so we got a little bit of time. Okay. Perfect. Great. And now you can see I can get my arm in there. No problem. So now we're going to take our longer screws. Oh. Look at that. So that was my mistake, guys. I was mistaken. The longer screws are for the middle, not for the inside. Otherwise, you're going to have issues with your screws sticking out too far. So I'm just going to pull these guys out, and it's no problem. We can quickly change this over. Go. All right. Perfect. Oh, no. Sorry guys, I'm confusing myself on camera. Maybe I got some nerves. I was correct the first time. These are for standoffs. That is my mistake. So, apologies for the confusion, everybody. I guess it's just live stream jitters. All good. So we'll just put these small ones back in. We had it right the first time. We don't want it to be super tight. So we can get these arms back in there. We're good. All right, So let's just get our arms. These are all identical, all these arms. So we just want to make sure that everything is snug and secure. And if you do it right, all these holes are going to line up. So it's kind of like making a puzzle. There we go. Now, I know you're supposed to talk all the time because the worst thing that you can do is have dead air. That's what I hear. So, I hope everybody's having a good weekend. I know things are pretty crazy out there right now, so, you know, I hope everyone's being kind, being careful, helping each other out as much as you can. Try to be patient with people, you know? Sometimes things are a little outside of people's control and they're doing their best. We've had some really great feedback. Thank you to everybody that came out on Canada Day and checked it out. We had a great time showing everybody what FPV is like and, you know, what the goggles are like, and I think we had some really great connections. Shout out to Evan for coming by and having a 45-minute conversation with us. Really got into the weeds and had some fun. So that was great. I hope you guys are all busy and happy and doing things over summer that you've always wanted to do. It's going to be a hot one for the next few days, like I said, here in Saskatoon, and then I think it's actually going to be even hotter next year. So we got some like El Nino coming through. That's what I keep hearing. And as if things weren't crazy enough, we're gonna get some pretty nuts weather. Some more flooding and some more floods and whatever. So let's enjoy it while we can. Things like drones are going to be lots of fun. They should be pretty useful if anybody's been paying attention to some of the floods going on in China. They've been using some drones to help with search and rescue. And they're a little bit bigger than a 2.5 inch, but same idea. So if you're starting to get comfortable with this stuff now, you know, you're going to be looking forward at the future and probably a little more comfortable with what's coming down the pipe, because there's all kinds of use cases for this sort of stuff. We're just building these for fun, but you know, there's lots of cool things that you can do with a tool. So let's get this through. You can see that the countersunk is really helping here because we can, you know, just see immediately that everything is nice and flush. Retighten all of these guys. And so now our arms are locked in. These guys should just spin because there's nothing on the other side, but we can come through and add our standoffs. This is nice because we can do all of them at the same time. Just a little bit of thread locker on each of these. Cool. And so these are actually some shorter standoffs because you don't need as much as the front. You can see that it's a split, it's called a split frame design, where you've got a top plate and then it splits and a second plate here. So that allows us to use shorter standoffs on the top and some larger ones on the bottom. Alright, so there we go. We've applied thread locker to everything except our motor screws, which will also get them because they are going to suffer vibration more than almost anything else. They're literally holding the vibrating bit, the motor. So just clean it up a little bit here. Just gonna use some paper towel. And this is nothing fancy. I'm just literally scooping up any of the excess thread locker, mostly as an aesthetic thing. And you know, we gotta build these things with love. So there we go. Okay. Our frame has been built. Excellent. So now we need to start getting the parts to actually put in here. We're going to be hooking up our buzzer using a wire wrapping tool. You can see that I've already installed it in here because instead of soldering it, we're going to use what's called a wire wrapping tool to take our wires, they're present here, and we're going to wrap these. I think these are AWG 28. Let's see. A little easier to read on the black. 30. Tiny little wires, but you don't need too much. And so now, we're just going to take this guy apart, and it is a really nice quad, but kind of a pain in the ass to take the Superfly frames apart. They are obviously not designed to be taken apart very often, because this cage at the front, you need to undo all the screws for the camera, and then you've got 3 additional kind of cross beams that hold it in place, and it goes underneath this, so it's very secure. Don't get me wrong, like it's really on there, but to get this camera out is a lot of effort. All right, here we take it. We're going to be using all this stuff. So this is the ELRS, this is the flight stack, or the flight controller. Here you can see that we've got some soldering we need to clean up for the electronic speed controller, and there's nothing attached right now. So we're going to be taking this and using it on this guy. And we also need to get this camera out of here. So we'll take out our plate, we'll take off our ELRS holder, and then this guy, so these antennas, this box, and this camera all need to come out, which is kind of a pain in the ass because when you need to get at these screws, your motor is in the way. So we're going to be doing a lot of unpacking here, which is why you might have noticed there was no soldering done here. This was purely for getting some weights. I needed to do some weighing for the operations manuals and make sure 100% that when we build this thing in a particular configuration, it comes out at less than 250 grams. And it does. It comes out at 246, 45, so it gives us a little bit of wiggle room. You can go like stuff some grass in there. Because the Hummingbird Pro comes in 2 configurations. It can come in a sub 250, which means you don't need a registered or a pilot license, and genuinely I think the sub 250 is going to become more and more popular, especially as Canada brings on more and more regulations. Whether those regulations are justified or not, they're coming, so the best we can do is prepare for it. And so the sub 250s are really nice because you can still fly those relatively easily without the overhead of, you know, having to worry about registering and pilot license, and eventually, you know, maybe they're going to bring in remote ID for sub 250, but remote ID is pretty controversial. If you guys haven't heard, that's kind of in the works right now, and some of it's okay in the sense that, oh, having everything registered isn't too big a deal as long as you can just go to a website and, like, you know, log in, and it, you know, it's not super expensive. But right now remote ID actually makes the pilot searchable by anybody, so anybody in their, you know, if they see a drone flying, can go online and search the exact location of the pilot which, to be honest, raises a lot of safety concerns because a pilot normally has their goggles on. And so if somebody is looking to make trouble, they can seek exactly where the pilot is on land and then go find them and, you know, result in a confrontation. So not saying that certain groups like law enforcement should probably be able to do that, and there's other groups like, you know, basically branches of the police or any kind of law enforcement, RCMP, etc. But that should be like an encrypted thing. Like you shouldn't have just normal people able to just go on a website and get the exact location of you. Like that's more than you can do for basically anything else. And it makes it really unsafe. So I'm hoping that with enough feedback to the Canadian government, and in this case it's Transport Canada, that at least some of these little, say, issues can be addressed before it goes into effect. And it sounds like everything's going to come into effect by 2030. So there's still a few years, you know, there's lots of figuring that's going to happen, and drones are going to change over time because like look how far they've come in the last 5 years, like where are they going to be in another 5 years? But still, it's, you know, something you got to advocate for. So we're sitting in on the Transport Canada, what do they call them? Not open houses, but the Q&A sessions that are coming up here this week. And we're just going to be paying attention and like watching for an opportunity to get feedback. I know you can go and provide some feedback right now, and we've already done that for the remote ID changes to say we'd like to make this more safe, basically, for pilots. But yeah, we just have to work within, you know, there's a bit of a give and a take. We have to work within this hobby and these drones just becoming more and more popular. And to those of you that think that, oh, it's the new people that are causing these problems, it's not. It's just they're more popular than they've ever been. And to be frank, you were kind of living in the Wild West before, where there wasn't a lot of regulation and there wasn't a lot of rules and ways to be safe. And, you know, it's all new. So sorry that things are changing, but you can't blame that on new people. It's really just the technology has matured to the point that people are more aware of what it's capable of. And even though most, you know, 99.9% of people are just having fun and using things in good faith, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have some regulations around it. So try to be nice to the people that are joining the hobby and, you know, coming in fresh and new. It's better to educate them and help them out rather than be, you know, mean-spirited. All you're going to do is basically make people dislike it if you are mean to them about this. So if you're looking to reduce, you know, regulation or reduce misunderstanding, it's going to take some patience on education. Okay. So you can see now how much work is involved in like getting this apart. Like I still can't take this plate out because even if I could take these screws and pop it out, it's got this lock at the bottom, so I have to take the entire cage out to change the camera. So absolutely adore the way this frame flies. It is amazing, but taking it apart is a pain. Now we're hoping that people don't need to take them apart very often, so we've kind of made that call that we don't think it's a deal breaker, because a lot of hobbyists like to change their cameras and stuff like that, but a lot of hobbyists also like to just leave things as are and just fly the drone. And we've, you know, picked up that there's a lot of people that are really interested in FPV and would like to experience flying, but don't want to do even this part that I'm doing right now, like this part of taking things apart and, you know, rebuilding them and switching cameras. It's just like, if you're not interested in this, I mean, that's fine. This shouldn't be necessary for you to fly. You should know how to do like basic maintenance, like how to adjust your camera angle. Easy peasy, you just move these screws around. But the idea of like, should you know how to 3D print to FPV? No. Should you know how to solder? I mean, maybe. Like, that definitely helps, but like, just the basics. Like, you don't need 1,000 hours in the simulator to be an FPV pilot. You know, I see a lot of that online where it's like, honestly, people are kind of overkilling the practice. Like they psych themselves out a little bit. And while practice is definitely good, there's nothing better than just literally getting on the sticks and like doing it safely. Like, don't be an idiot. Don't fly around people. Don't fly over property. Like, go somewhere that you're going to be able to recover the drone. Like, try to fly reasonably. Don't, do things you're not capable of. And that is really the best way to get your reps in, because even a few hours flying a drone are going to be more useful to you than a bunch of hours in the simulator. So here you can see this is the difference in the antennas. This is a Radio Master one. This is an HD0 one. To be honest, I much prefer the Radio Master version because these ends tend to fray. Here's a good example. Yeah, for whatever reason, HD0 does not put rubber end caps on their antennas. So this is coming with the HD0 stack, and oh, sorry, I might be off. This is coming with the HD0 stack, and it's a pretty significantly expensive stack. Like, it costs almost $200, and this comes with a $20, maybe $30 ELRS from Radio Master. So I like the stack. The HD0 stack is excellent. It has diversity. It's lightweight. It is conformal coated on the ESC. It performs extremely well. 70 amps of power. Like, it's a good stack, but these are cheap. They do not hold up to abuse very well. And to be honest, the cable tends to separate from the plastic housing. So we actually ordered a bunch of extras of these that we're probably just going to include on the stacks. Like, we're just going to replace them because they're longer, they're a lot more durable, and they actually are smaller. They can fit in things like this housing really easily, where you see this is too wide. You have to build like a custom holder just for these antennas. So just some personal thoughts, but this frame is now fully apart. We're going to do the last step here because I do want to change my my colors. All right, pull these UFLs off, and now we use the super fancy method of push them at the base. If you want to see what I'm doing here, I'm just using my screwdriver, the flat end, and I'm pushing on the very end of the UFL connector and just popping it out. It's because the tops are kind of made like a cup, and so you can seat it in there really easily, and to get them out, this is the best method. And there you go. UFL connector out, UFL connector out, and then this guy's got his buzzer. Cool. So we'll rebuild him just so the parts are all together. At the back, and then there's some stuff for the front there that I'll get to in a second. But I am going to load this guy first because you almost want to build and replace the parts at the same time so it doesn't get too confusing. So here we go. Again, we don't have to worry about soldering onto the buzzer because we're going to have a solderless connection, although we might use some heat shrink. So I think these cables are going to be fine. We can just pull them out of the way. And when we go to heat shrink, we'll just pop this guy, connect this. We're just going to pop it up using the same method we just did. Just push on the bottom, pop it up, and then we'll do the soldering. We're not going to heat gun the plastic. We'll just heat gun sideways, and then we'll snap it back in. And the best way to snap it is use your table and just push on it because it's all friction fit. So good. Now this guy, here's a good example of thread lockers. So you can see on, so you can see there a little bit of blue, the DJI. The DJI using the blue thread locker. Look at them, very fancy. Okay, So we're going to reconnect our UFLs. And it doesn't really matter because these antennas are exactly the same, but I'm just going to try and keep my left on my left and my right on my right so that it's a little bit cleaner for cable management. And I'm left-handed, so I'm going to bring this over to my left hand. Cool. Alright, let's put it back together. So on the sub 250s, we actually leave these 04 units totally, you know, un-3D encased. I don't know what the best word is. There's a little compartment that you can put them in for when you don't care about your weight, and it looks like this. So the, you know, the 04 unit just sits, that's gonna be backwards. So the cable runs through the bottom. I'll just show you here really quick. Cable runs through the bottom. We're just going to ignore the camera right now. Ah, heck, I'll just show you, why not. So, camera just goes through. That's why it's got a big, you know, space in the bottom is for cables and the camera and stuff like that to run. And then you just basically pressure fit it. So here. And then this folds up, and there you go. You got a snug little fit. Your bind button's accessible, your cart's accessible. This one's taken a beating from a prop. You know, that's how I learned the hard way about a thread locking situation, so that's fine. And then here is your connection, so you can, you know, plug it in your computer. And then everything is, you know, designed so that it runs underneath here. Like, the idea is that it doesn't put any strain on your connections, so it fits nice and snug, and we're happy as a clam. But we're not using the pink, so this is all coming off. Gonna just move these to the middle so that we don't pull on them, because we want to protect our antennas. And we take these off, and to be honest, sure, let's do it this way again. Cool. Great. Okay. Well. I'm just going to check here. Check that things are still moving along. Hey, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for the kind word. It sure pops. Hey. Hi, Michael. Good to see you, man. So we'll keep working here. I just need to check a quick message, but yeah, we're just working through our Superfly and our Hummingbird models with the quad mula and the Superfly frames. Now, resume. Sorry, everybody. Sorry about that. I must have hit a button or something, but we're gonna just turn this around. Is it working? It is. Excellent. Okay, I'll be careful not to hit that button again. Okay, excellent. Sorry about that, everybody. Little interruption as I got used to it. So you can see here that we've put our registration number for the drone on the bottom. That's just because we were building this one to be above 250 grams for a few models, and then we took it below 250, so that's what all the flipping around of the different components was for. Now I think I'm going to actually build this guy with a light, you know, sub 250, and put this Flywoo kind of 04 basic on here, but even though it's called basic, it's still got a long cable, and it actually has a housing around it, so this guy can still shoot 4K. It just doesn't have the same latency as the 04 Pro. And then this camera housing is being changed because DJI has updated their camera. Hopefully I'm in screen here. It's updating their camera from this version to a wide angle version. So this one's got like a lens upgrade on it, and the new version won't have that, but it'll still have this housing, so everything still fits. So hopefully you guys like that. But I'm not gonna worry about this. I'm just gonna take these guys, I'm gonna put them to the side for now, because as much fun as it is to have our Superfly frame, we are going to be building our Quadmula frame. We'll come back to this guy later. Maybe on live stream, maybe not. And I'm just going to do this to keep all these parts connected, because it's easier to keep track of them if I do this. Okay, there we go. We got some bits and bobs. Okay. So you might be able to tell we really like pinks and blues. We like bright colors. Huge fan. All the RC and power stuff. I mean, there's multiple colors. You guys will see it as they come into stock here. But they've got lots of reds and, you know, purples, gunmetals, chromes, like a whole pile of stuff. So we're super excited to be getting those. And apologies for everybody that is waiting on a drone right now. To be honest, there has been some delays in the shipping, and we've been fighting through it. So we're almost done. We've almost accomplished all of the shipping and ordering and the suppliers issues, and we're finally on track. So it's looking really, really good. Thank you so much for your patience, and we'll just keep you guys posted as things continue to, I don't want to say develop, but as they, you know, get finalized. And there we go. I'm just going to put this out of the way for now. These are my DJIs. Cool. Okay. So here is where we get this guy out. Oh, right, I can't because it's down there. Cool. All right. Well, now we'll need to prep this guy. So Quadmula has these little grommets that they, where are you? Right here. Little grommets. And these go on the side of the 04 camera. You want to do your bottom ones first, because that's what fits into the receiver from Quadmula. So they've done an excellent job designing these. It all works together. And I'm a huge fan. When we implement our frame, you know, we're going to be using some kind of tech like this too. So, all right. Let's undo our threads. Cool. All right. That guy's pretty on there, so that's okay. We just fit it in the bottom here, just like this. Now I got a couple of extra screws that we use to secure it in place, and I'll do this now because it's easier than being over the motor arms. So there you go. You'll see it's nice and flush. I'll show you it's nice and flush, so you know it's secure. And this is my favorite way of mounting the camera on the quad motor frames. You can do it, like I said, with the other mounting, but I personally prefer this, as it's just a more secure way of doing it. And then, push that guy, push that guy. All right. Okay. Our camera is now secure. Excellent. Next, we're going to secure this guy. And we're not going to worry about him waving around too much. We're just using all the same screws that we used previously. Which does make this pretty nice. So, there's our camera. Let's put it on this side and just get everything lined up. Okay. And a couple of thread lockers. Okay. So now the only thing we want to watch for is our ELRS. It actually goes underneath, so we're going to want to just thread it through. We don't need a ton of space for that, but we are going to have to loosen those guys just a little bit to get it through there. Alright, as you can see, it just fits nice and snug. And now we're going to want to put on our standoffs at the back. Both of these guys get, you guessed it, thread locker. So we'll just hold it in place. Very nice. Again, the short standoff since we're on the top plate. Nice. Let's tighten those up. Very good. Very good. Right on. Okay. And these guys just want to center them. This thing, we actually put the solid bar on the bottom because then the piece gets sandwiched between the two and is as protected as possible. The alternative is how to hang it out the bottom, and then you can hang it up in a crash. So we don't want to do that. All right. So this is just kind of basically cable management. We just would prefer if we can thread this through the bottom and around the top because it makes cable management later just so much easier. It's actually just the right length, so you can do this and then just feed it through. We've got some, probably getting my head in there a little bit. All right, we're just gonna pull it through. Just get it to push through there. Alright, maybe it's going to come down slightly. There we go. Okay. Here's the part where we manage the cable. Try to put it through the center of those air intakes, and because we've got this guy really exposed, there's really no issue with covering one of them, even just partially with that cable. So we're going to tighten all these guys back up. And a little tough to demonstrate, but you guys might be able to see that the cable is now routed through the like little foils on the back, and there's just enough space that it's got clearance. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. I'm just going to loosen it slightly so that I can reposition, but it's like excellent now that we can basically just thread it that way. And as building a puzzle goes, I'm just going to pull this up. Very good. It slides down. Very good. Now I can pull my ELRS. Oh, I see. It's flipped around, did it? Very good. Well, shucks, hey? A little flipped. Okay, there we go. Okay, good. Now we're fine. Now we pull it through. So sorry I'm not talking, guys. I got my phone recording, and to be honest, I'm not looking at the chat very much, so this is something I'm going to have to get used to as we continue to do more and more live streams. And I just kind of wanted to, you know, include you in the build. Like, I know this is a bit of a longer one because we're not starting from scratch. We're kind of working our way backwards through a build and then forwards through another one, so it's not as perfectly clean as we normally would be with just with a brand new build, but this hopefully gives you an idea. And then this ELRS, you can see, just like sits on the top here. So when I do bring over my stack and have our ELRS, it has just enough space to route on top there. So this is all in an effort to be highly effective cable management. And so I'm just going to twist up the cable at the back here, and I'm going to just place this guy back on. We're going to take him off again when we want to do the buzzer, but that's going to be in a minute, and I just want to keep things clean. So there you go. And you can see how clean that is at the back. We've got our ELRS nicely tucked in, our cable running safely, you know, between the carbon and the O4 air unit. We've got it just enough that it can wrap around and click into the top. We've now got our camera in there. So we're doing great. All right, so we got our motors that are gonna get put on here in a minute. And then we've got our stack. And to be honest, let's do our stack because I'm gonna do this in two parts. You can see we've already soldered our buzzer connections on. Very nice. But I'm gonna unplug everything here because we need to clean up some of the soldering on our board, because when we took it apart, we did it in a bit of a rush, and I'm going to want to add some more, I'm just going to clean it up a bit. So I'm going to unplug everything here. And I'm basically going to end the live stream here, but this gives you a bit of an idea of like what we're doing, where we're going. Hey everybody. Hello. It's been really fun talking to everybody, and sorry we didn't complete the build, but from here on out, what I'm going to tell you is we're going to do. We're going to put this guy in, but facing forward, and then this guy in the future is actually going to get this holder, so it goes right across the front and just like goes diagonally. We did it this way just to do some testing with the heat shrunk cable and stuff, but what we discovered is that the vibrations can make these legs just a little bit fragile, and so we're going to be mounting it this way instead. Quadmula makes this, and I'm just going to be printing a version of it in the same green here, so that's going to be like honestly the next step, and it's going to take all of maybe 5-10 minutes. And then these solders aren't the cleanest. You can see that while they're kind of shiny, like they're not so bad, they do need some more flux, and then we're going to need to resolder them with the motors. So I'll come back afterward and just talk about kind of that process, and we're going to keep on keeping on. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little taste of a WingSmith build, and it's been a little bit of a chat, a little bit of a sesh. I guess before I go, let's knock off some of our QA. That was kind of the intent. So correct frame, stack, motors, receiver, video system, printed parts. Quadmula F25SP. We're not going to do the standard. We're going to do 04 Pro. There we go. Green prints ELRS XR1. Check and give it some initials. Components visually inspected before installation. No shipping damage or missing parts. I've already done that prior to coming on, but yep, look at that. Looks good. And all the components have been previously visually inspected by me, so I'll put my signature. Customer options confirmed against order notes. Well, in this place, it's an internal test, so I can knock that off. And yep, we're good to go. Serial numbers assigned and recorded. This guy is not being assigned anything because it's an internal build. So this is basically Hummingbird 1. So I can just say HB01. And we'll give it that, and I'll sign off. Build photos started for internal record. Well, I've already taken several photos of this guy, but we're also doing a live stream, which is going to be recorded. So we're going to count that. Because again, this is an internal build. If you guys order one, we'll have lots of photos, and we'll have the serial number that is sent to you, and all of this will be backed up in our system. So we're good to go. Mechanical build. Frame assembled square with no binding cracks or stress plates. Yep. All screws installed with appropriate thread locker where suitable, and no over tightening of plastic printed parts. That's true. We did it together, and we've got our torque screwdriver that doesn't over tighten things. Motors installed in correct position. Well, we haven't done that yet. Camera angle, antenna placement, battery strap, and TPU mounts installed according to the model standard. Well, we've done our camera angle, we've done our antennas, and we haven't yet done our battery strap. But would you look at that? There is a WingSmith battery strap that's already on the top plate. So we're going to knock that guy off. Check. No sharp edges or pinch points, contacting wires, batteries, receiver. Well, we haven't installed the motors yet, but so far we've been great. So I'll knock that off when we get there. All solder joints inspected. Well, we just did that, but we haven't corrected it yet. Battery lead polarity confirmed before any battery power up. I mean, this is a little bit in the future. Continuity check, we'll do that. Capacitor installed with correct polarity and mechanically secured where applicable. Yep, we'll be doing that as well. So, and smoke stopper. Okay, so then we get into firmware and our bench test and custom material packaging with the QA certificate, which is basically a version of this that is going to go to the customer. Configuration backup, so we'll get into the ELRS configuration, the Betaflight configuration, and all of that will be included in the box as well as in the manual. We got our motor mapping, our rework, so we got a little ways to go in our QA, but to be honest, a lot of this gets checked off pretty fast, and you can see that we've, just up to this point knocked out maybe half the build, so this should give you an idea of where we're going with our internal QA. And so every WingSmith build is going to get this. This was just a demonstration of, some of the different, some of the different setup. And like I said, we're not doing the Flywoo 04 on a whim. I've decided, because this is an internal build, to do the 04 Pro. And so we will make note of that in our rework section at the bottom. But this is an internal build where I got to decide what, like, if I'm the customer, I get to decide what's in here. And I'm actually going to use what I listed here, the Flywoo 155 yada yada yada, on the Superfly stack. So I'll be doing another one of these for that one, and we'll begin formatting everything for our internal system. We've been doing lots of builds, but this is our documentation process that's really starting to take shape. And so we're kind of doing the work part of the actual drone company. So we've had lots of fun up to this point, doing the builds, doing the engineering, doing the testing, saving everything, design, yada yada yada. And now's the less fun documentation work part. So hopefully you guys are having a great day. I will chat with you again soon, and I'll just turn this around. Bye everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hello Michael. Thanks again for stopping by and, you know, saying hi. And I hope that we can chat again soon. Do you guys ship drones to Regina? Absolutely, man. Like 100%. Let me just reply to you. Hey, Ito. Yeah, of course. Yes, we do. We ship all over Canada. And are exploring other options. Okay, I'll just put that for now. That's a great question, because we do, and in Canada, there's no problem. Our insurance covers everything within Canada, and we're great. We're technically a drone manufacturer, so, you know, your parts become, even though there are other components that are going to be from places like Flywoo or DJI, when we assemble the drone, we become responsible for it. So that's why we're actually building the QA process. Aha! This whole thing, the whole idea behind it is that we're taking responsibility for the components that are included in the drone. So I know these components are good that I'm putting on the live stream. I've tested them, I've flown them, they've been great. But and this is an internal, you know, build. But when we go to do customer purchases, what we do is we actually get our little scope going, and what we do is we'll circuit test everything. So we make sure that everything's basically not going to explode on you. It's all safe. And like I said, Flywoo and DJI and all of these different companies, you know, RC and Power, all have their own QC process. But, you know, we got to make sure. So we will test the motors. That's why it's part of the QA test. We're going to test the electronics and use the smoke stopper. We do a bench test. And if it's, you know, if we're able to, we're even going to do a hover test. It's just that we need to do that indoors, because Transport Canada has rules around flying in Canadian airspace. If you fly indoors, that doesn't count as Canadian airspace. So you don't have to register the drone, but now you're flying inside. So we have to take safety precautions, and we're going to be tethering, and that's a whole kind of setup. Let's say, like, that's a whole safety setup, and we will be doing that for the drones that are leaving our, you know, our care. But it also helps for when people have questions, like if they say, hey, like, I'm having issues with my motors or my ESC or my camera, like, can you help me troubleshoot? We can look back at what was actually put in and when, and look at things like, okay, well, this is how it was performing when it left the warehouse. We can look at the black box. We can look at things like, you know, there is things like a multimeter in the toolkit that comes with the kits, so we can help people over the phone or over a video conference, you know, troubleshoot their drone. We can do the repairs on it. You can do the repairs on it. It's not like any of this is closed. We specifically tried to keep everything open. The only thing that we went with a proprietary system was DJI, and it's like, no offense to the people that love flying analog. I like analog. I think it's great, but the quality of analog video compared to the digital DJI video is frankly dog shit. It is terrible, and it is so hard to convince somebody that has never seen FPV before that, like, this is the best possible version. It's absolutely a good version if you like flying in a particular way, but a lot of people that are learning or just getting into FPV have a better experience when they're, the first thing they see is a 4K, video transmission. Like when they feel like they are actually flying, they get a better emotional reaction to it. I know that's how the people we've introduced to it have experienced it. So it's kind of like when there is an alternative that is at that quality or at least close to that quality and, is at relatively either the same or lower price point, we'll totally consider it, and we will be bringing on eventually some analog to support it. But when your HD0 Goggles 2 are like twice the cost of the Goggles 3, and they have for sure a built-in analog receiver, but they can't do the penetration of DJI. It's like, well, okay, most new people are going to have a better experience with the DJI system. It is proprietary, and there's nothing I can do about that, but give it time. There will be more and more that we support. But if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out anytime. It's been a real pleasure working with everybody. Yeah, no problem. Edo, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. But been a real pleasure to, take you on this little journey with us today. And we'll be doing another live stream next Saturday. And hopefully Carmen can do one during the week. So if you have any questions, reach out anytime. Been a real pleasure. And we'll talk soon. See you.